Okay, let's see. June production generated the following activity in Bentley Chassis Company's work in process inventory account. Okay, so they give us this activity. June 1 balance was 28,000. Then they put direct materials towards this job, or they used 40,000 in direct materials. They used 48,000 in direct labor, and then there's 24,000 in overhead allocated. Okay. Prepare the journal entry for production completed in June. Prepare a single journal entry for this event. Record debits first, then credits. Exclude explanations from any journal entries. Okay, so that means we don't need to put a memo in. Okay, so we're going to debit work in process, because the work in process inventory account is increasing. Okay, and then we're going to credit. The first thing is the raw materials inventory. That's what the direct material is. So 40,000 is coming out of raw materials inventory and going into work in process. Then we're also going to have some direct labor going in. So let's see what kind of accounts they give us. I'll call it wages payable. So that means we owe 48,000 in wages, and we assign 48,000 of those wages to work in process. So that 48,000 went to jobs, to specific jobs. Okay, and then overhead of 24,000 was allocated. So let's see, that's going to come out of my manufacturing overhead account. So you see what that does is that actually reduces the manufacturing overhead account. And a lot of times it reduces it before all of the actual costs are in the account. Let me pull this up real quick. I'm going to kind of give you a visual on how that works. So say you got this manufacturing overhead account. I make a T account. I like T accounts. Okay. Make sure I make it right. Okay. Okay. So we got this manufacturing overhead account, manufacturing. I abbreviated, right? So manufacturing overhead costs would accumulate on the debit side, and then when we assign them out, it's going to reduce the manufacturing overhead account. So that's going to happen on the credit side. So they move out of manufacturing overhead into the work in process. Into the work in process account. Let's see here. Can I put something in to show this? So when they get assigned, they're going to move out of overhead into work in process. Okay. Assigned, sometimes called allocated. Okay, and work in process absorbs those costs. So you would have manufacturing overhead coming in. You would have direct material and direct labor coming into the work in process. That's these both of work in process is an inventory account. Now, on the debit side, that's where you accumulate it. Right? You accumulate. I left a L out. That's where it's accumulated. Okay. Now, the thing is, these jobs, they don't end at the end of the calendar year. They could be ending mid-year, but they still need to take on some of this overhead costs. So we use that predetermined rate, like in the prior problem, to figure out how much to assign. But the thing is, you could be crediting the overhead account to assign it to jobs before you really have enough in actual cost accumulated, right? So throw some numbers in there, just to take the words out. So you could be, you may have only accumulated 30,000 in overhead, actual overhead costs, but you've had to assign 150 out already. You see what I'm saying? So when you get to the end of the accounting period, you're going to either have, I say almost like 99% of the time, you're either going to have assigned more than you accumulated, or you assign less than you accumulated. And there's a journal entry to correct that at the end. Okay, so that's why it's an estimate. I just wanted to make that aside. So a lot of times people get confused about this allocation of overhead. Okay, so all of these three costs are going to go to my work in process. So that's 88, 112. If I did the math in my head correctly. Let's chance it. Did it without the, oh, what did I do? Went too fast maybe? Okay, I got 40, 48, 24. 112, okay, let's see what we did. You know, it's actually asking us, it really skipped a step. So it's not really asking us to assign, it's asking us to do an entry for the jobs completed in June. So there's a little bit of a curveball. This would be what happens when you assign cost to the job, but when jobs are completed, we gotta wipe this out, okay? Wait, let me show you the steps, since we probably don't want to waste the effort we did here. This is what happens when the jobs are still in process. You're assigning these costs. Now when the jobs are completed, it's saying that job 142 and 143 are completed. It's going to move out of work in process and into finished goods. Okay? So really we need to increase the finished goods inventory by the sum of these two, so 35,000 plus 50,000, so that's 85,000. Hey, my number board's not working correctly. Okay, and then we're going to take it out of work in process. Kind of stumbling along here. Okay. So again, we overlooked the what it's asking us for. Yeah. Okay. So it's just saying that these two jobs were completed, and there could be several more jobs sitting in that work in process. Now it wants me to do a T account. So this is basically the T account, and my work in process started with 28,000. So we'll start with a $28,000 debit. This is the beginning balance. Okay. Now we can do what we were supposed to do. We'll put in the direct materials used, not purchased, right? Direct labor assigned to jobs, and the manufacturing overhead allocated to jobs. So that's going to be these three here. 40,000, 48,000, and 24,000. Okay. And then notice I'm just going to post this credit that I did in the previous step. I'm going to take the 85,000. Those were the jobs that were finished, and move to I think it wants me to skip a row. Finished and moved right. Jobs 142 and 143 were completed, so they're no longer in work in process. So now we come up with the ending balance. So it's just a matter of taking a balance of that T account. So we're going to go 28,000 plus 40,000, 48,000, 24,000. Then I'm going to subtract from that The 80, yeah, the 85,000. And that should be our ending balance, 55,000. Okay, we did well. So what does it ask me for next? Prepare the journal entry to record the sale on account of job 143 for 61,000. Okay. Also prepare the journal entry to record cost of goods sold for job 143. So this is really like an accounting 201 entry that we're going to have now. We're going to first record the sale, so we're going to have accounts receivable 61,000. That's job 143. That's what we actually sell it for. So that's not our cost. And we're going to call that sales revenue, 61,000. Okay. Now, like we did in accounting 201, perpetual method, we have to book the cost. So we're going to debit cost of goods sold. And job 143, they tell us what it cost. Right up here, right? 143 is 50,000. So you're going to have a debit 50,000, and that's going to come out of the finished goods inventory. Okay. So we reduce inventory and increase the expense called cost of goods sold. Okay. Then it's really a matter of figuring out the gross profit. Okay. So remember, gross profit is the revenue minus the cost of goods sold.
Yeah.
So it's the difference between 61,000 and 50,000. So you got $11,000 gross profit. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps.
Makes sense.